Hi there. In this video I'm going to explain the EU from its beginning and the German problem to the main three developments in the past 60 years to the criteria to enter the EU. Let's start with the German problem. So, after World War II, Germany was divided. It was divided first because, the Soviet Union took over Eastern Germany, and West Germany was left in this other non-communist area. The US took a role of a hegemonic power to provide security and counterbalance. NATO was created to keep the Soviet Union out, the Americans in, and the Germans down. The Federal Chancellor Adenauer wanted the normalization and regaining of respect for Germany by integrating it into Western Europe and its arrangements. Also, it became a member of the European Coal and Steel Community, NATO, European Economic Community in 1955, after the failure of the European Defense Community. It was a fast economic recovery and the German institution. The legacy shadow of Germany's past, civilian. They don't have military power and they don't have great power ambitions. This is the legacy. Furthermore, the three main developments over the past 60 years of the EU was its deepening, broadening, widening. The deepening, so of course, the members that acceded to become part of the Union had to transfer some of its sovereignty powers of their nations and modify some of their institutions. So it deepened into their powers. Broadening, the EU, as it grew and as it developed, started to touch more policy areas, from economic, which was the European Coal and Steel Community, mainly the trade of coal and steel, to guarantee that Germany wouldn't reconstruct military, etc., was mainly triggered by France, because France saw Germany with suspicion. Well, so the broadening, more policy areas, from economic, via the Single European Act, European Monetary Union, Maastricht, to political integration and cooperation. So it was like a spillover effect, what was intended. So starting with economic and spillover into political and peace. Mainly keep peace in the Union and no more wars. The widening, more member states became part of the Union in different enlargement stages. For instance, after the end of the Cold War, many Eastern European countries were free from communism, and of course this saw with ambition the capitalist bloc, which seemed way happier, more developed, and they really wanted to become part of this democratic bloc, etc. So many of these member states became part of the Union, and also, but in different stages, of course, and as well as Spain and Portugal, which were under authoritarian regimes. After these regimes were over, of course, the states met the Copenhagen criteria, which was guaranteeing democracy, one of them. I will explain this later. But yeah, this criteria needs to be fulfilled by members in order to be able to become candidates, and one of them is the political, which is democracy. So authoritarian regimes are not allowed in the EU. Therefore, Portugal and Spain came at different paces than France, for example. Alright, so the widening means that there are more member states for various reasons and in different enlargement stages. One of them, the end of the Cold War, which I explained, from Western European integration to European integration. So the end of the Cold War meant that there was no longer this separation between the West and the East, as the East was no longer communist or under Russia's domination. So it was a unification of Europe as a whole. Eastern Europe, Central Europe, Western Europe, everything. And the criteria for membership, the Copenhagen criteria, which is there below. And Brexit is a counterback, like a drawback. Becomes from widening, which is enlarging, to Brexit. The EU lost a member. Well, we don't know yet what will happen. So, but there were various external and internal dynamic driving forces and dynamics. End of the Cold War, German reunification, and there is an importance of treaty and non-treaty reform, but overall, over the past 60 years, we still don't know what's the finality and whether the EU has gained democratic support by its citizens. This will be explained in another video about EU's democratic deficit, which will talk about the European Parliament and why it is seen, well, why is there such a low voter turnout during elections of the European Parliament. So going back to this deepening, transfer point of sovereignty, broadening more policy areas, and widening more members, let's see the Copenhagen criteria. So what do members need to do, or fulfill, satisfy in order to become candidates? So first of all, the political criteria. They need to guarantee that they have stability of institutions, guaranteeing democracy, the rule of law, human rights, and respect and protection of minorities. Economic criteria, a functioning market economy, and capacity to cope with competition and market forces. And third and final, administrative and institutional capacity to effectively implement the Acquis Communitaire, which is this, and ability to take obligations of membership. So political, being democratic, having the rule of law, respecting minorities, respecting human rights, respecting the people. Economic, of course, a functioning market economy to cope with competition, market forces, as Europe is quite advanced economically. It's not like you can just let a member who doesn't have proper market, a functioning market, into the EU, because this would make the EU's budget go a lot. The EU would have to pay a lot with its budget for the development of these countries, and overall it would just drown the EU, but whatever. So yeah, a functioning market economy is very important, and capacity to cope with competition and market forces. The administrative and institutional capacity, of course, you can have a political facade, which is like a mask. It's like, oh, we did elections, etc. But this can be false, you know. So administrative and institutional capacity to implement the Acquis and ability to take obligations of membership. What is the Acquis? So the Acquis Communitaire. Its adoption and implementation is on the basis for acceding to negotiations. It's a body of common rights and obligations that bind all member states constantly, and it's constantly evolving and comprises content and principles and political objectives of treaties, the legislation of treaties, and in case of law, the Court of Justice, declaration and resolutions of the EU, and instruments under the common foreign security policy and security policy. Well, these are some policies of the EU, the common foreign security policy and security policy, which are mainly, I will explain them later, but it's how the EU deals with third parties and externally, how it communicates with the external world, how it takes decisions outside, etc. So, the Acquis means that the members need to adopt and implement these rules. So also the common foreign security policy and the security policy, and the international agreements concluded by the EU. Right? So this is it for this little video, 10 minutes video. 3 main developments, the German problem, here it is, and the accession criteria, as well as the Acquis Communitaire. Thank you.